Is it okay for Christians to read other religious holy books?
Where America is in Bible prophecy.
Women becoming pastors and
Anointing homes and praying over homes.
Why would God have people tormented and burned for eternity?
What happened or where Jesus went after he died?
What is your opinion? What does the Bible say?
This is Pastor's Perspective. We're here every Monday through Friday providing answers on a variety of topics, including the Bible, end times, other religions, and the family. And now here's today's host, Brian Perez.
Hello there. Thank you so much for listening and for watching the Pastor's Perspective program on YouTube and Facebook.com. Brian Perez here, along with Pastor Brian Broderson from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, and Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube. How you guys doing?
Great.
We're doing great.
Yay.
We're doing amazing. We just are talking about surfing. And,
That's right.
You know.
And you were just sharing with me about how a half a century ago you were surfing Salt Creek.
I know.
I wasn't even
that is
on the planet yet.
Yeah, I know. pretty unbelievable. Surfing Salt Creek half a century ago. How did that happen? I don't know.
That just makes it sound, because sometimes you say that you've been, for example, preaching for decades.
Yeah.
But half a century, that just makes it sound more.
Yeah. So I started surfing when I was 12.
Okay.
And I'm 63. So that means I've been surfing for 51 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as the great theologian Kenny Chesney says, 100 years goes by faster than you think. Don't blink.
Yeah. And, you know, after 50 years, I'm almost able to stand up. I'm just.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've been working on it. Been a lot of belly boarding.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take some phone calls here, beginning with Agosa in Eastvale. Welcome to the program, Agosa.
Hey, pastors. Hello again.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I got a beautiful question for all three of y'all. You ready?
We're ready.
I've been reading right now. I'm on Art in the Bible from the legendary Francis Schaeffer, and my question comes from the Bible and from his book, and it's like this: How should we as Christians biblically, use art to glorify God without putting it in a box? Since there's Christians that tend to not really understand art, but only to just homogenize it.
Okay, Brian, what would you say?
Well, of course, there are many famous artists throughout history that have been Christians and have expressed that in their art during the Renaissance period or during the, earlier the medieval period or, all through. I mean, especially in Europe, you go to any of the museums. I was in Amsterdam actually earlier in the year, I think it was the end of last year. And I was there looking at the Rembrandts, and so many of the things that Rembrandt did were about Christ and his life and so forth. And yeah, that's amazing. That's wonderful. Francis Schaeffer, of course, that he would have been into all of that kind of stuff. Art is much bigger. We all know this. It's much bigger than paintings or drawings and things like that. It includes music and it includes drama, and it includes literature and so forth. So, I think people who are gifted artists ought to use their gift for the glory of God. And I think, sometimes that's going to be very overtly expressing a Christian message, and sometimes it's going to not be as overt necessarily, but it's going to be it's going to be in there. C.S. Lewis is a classic example. I mean, you think of the Chronicles of Narnia. Anybody can read the Chronicles of Narnia and just think these are the most amazing kid stories ever. They're just phenomenal kid stories, and not necessarily know that this is all an analogy of the Christian life and of Christ and so forth. But then somebody who's a believer reads it and they're like, oh my gosh, Aslan, of course that's Jesus. It's plain, and it's just as plain as the nose on your face. You can see it. So I think Lewis is a great example of somebody who, through his literary gift, expressed, the glory of God came through that. And, we need more people like that today, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sure do. I mean, I loved this little book, The Art in the Bible by Francis Schaeffer. It's a good little read. Nancy Piercy, who studied under Francis Schaeffer at L'Abri in the Swiss Alps, she wrote a book called Saving Leonardo. Mm-hmm. And it's a tour de force, as it's been described, of kind of juxtaposing some of the Christian art with the secular art and showing how the art can formulate a worldview. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that we have to be able to understand that art is presenting to us a worldview. Mm-hmm. And knowing how to interpret art mm-hmm. can help us to see which worldview is coming at us. Yeah. Now, on an aesthetic beauty, I love Vladimir Kush. They have one of his art museums in Laguna Beach. And the first time I walked in there, I was stunned. And he's a surrealist. And surrealism is the artistic form of kind of combining the real with what you can dream about. So you can have like a flying elephant in a dream, and it fits. And so his imagination is just so crazy. And I just love the beauty by which he paints with. And I love, because I'm a number 4 on the Enneagram, I love the creative side of just what surrealism allows you to do. But in real life, we need boundaries. We need borders. We need some limitations to live. And so art that just tries to present to us a worldview without mm-hmm. boundaries, without borders, without parameters, without truth, a worldview that says, define your own truth. Let it be to you what you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And so that can be dangerous. There's stuff like abstract expressionism you look at and you go, how is Jackson Pollock's work art, just splashing the paint up on the canvas? But to your point,
everybody.
Exactly, right? But to your point, though, I love like Rembrandt's The Three Crosses, and it elicits a response, right? When you see the 3 crosses of Rembrandt, you're supposed to look at that piece of art. And it's even said that Rembrandt would paint himself into his paintings and he would kind of be in the background. But what you see in Rembrandt's 3 crosses is you see people weeping, others pulling their hair out. You see people passing by as if it's no big deal. Mm-hmm. And what Rembrandt's trying to get us to ask ourselves is, how does the cross affect you? Mm-hmm. Are you a passerby? Do you weep? Do you pull your hair out? Are you mad about what happened? Mm-hmm. And I think that's good art. I think about another work by Rembrandt, The Return of the Prodigal Son. That's my favorite Rembrandt piece. Mm-hmm. Just a phenomenal piece that is worth looking at. I think that when we look at art, yes, appreciate the beauty, but what is the beauty trying to tell us? Mm-hmm. And I think as Christians that do art, we should be trying to point people to the beauty of truth and to God, and helping people capture that. And that doesn't mean we have to be overtly like painting a picture of a cross like Rembrandt, but it should have a compelling piece to it that wants us, that beckons us toward truth.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Gosa, thanks for your phone call today here on Pastor's Perspective. I pulled up on the screen here the painting that you're talking about, Bobby. Rembrandt's The Three Crosses, so check that out. Just do a search for it. All right, you're listening to Pastor's Perspective. Thank you so much for doing that. Brian Perez here, along with Brian Broderson, the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, and Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube. We're here every Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific time to answer the questions you have about the Bible, the Christian faith, just about anything that's on your mind. Next, we're going to go to Irvine and speak with Nary. Hello, Nary. Thanks for calling us today.
Hey, thanks, guys, for taking my call.
You're welcome.
My question for today would be, me and my fiance recently got engaged, and we've been practicing abstinence. Is that enough for us to get married, or do I have to move out of my home? And, during this COVID, it's a little hard for me, so we're keeping it holy by practicing being absent from each other.
When are you going to get married?
We plan on getting married. Well, we wanted to get married within a year, and we did talk about it, and we made a promise to us and most importantly God of doing this challenge. And it was hard at first, but we're doing so good now. It's really easy. However, with this COVID and everything, I don't think that we're going to have the wedding that we really want.
Yeah.
You know, they're telling us that we can't get married. Our church that we want to do, they're like, we can't gather more than 10 people. It just can't happen. So we want to get married pretty soon, actually, by City Hall. That's another question. Can we get married at City Hall?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, that's what I would recommend. Look, and it's great that you're committed to abstinence. And, you know, abstinence means like, you know, staying completely away from each other, keeping your clothes on in each other's presence. You know, it's not just, well, you know, we didn't go all the way. It's really, you know, being set apart. That's what God's going to honor. I've known many people over the years who ended up in a living situation where it was not really possible for them to get out of the living situation, but they made a commitment to not engage sexually in any way, shape, or form until they were married. You know, not to see each other without their clothes on, not to shower, not to do any of that. Just, hey, no, we're going to save that till we get married. And I think that's honorable. And I think it you know, sometimes it's just what has to be done. But you can and should, you can remedy the problem easily by just going and getting married. And you can get a wedding certificate, a marriage certificate. You know, just because you can't have a large wedding. I think a lot of people in the COVID era, I actually just did a wedding 2 weeks ago. And in the COVID era, the wedding was, it was still, you know, good. I mean, there were probably, you know, 40 people there or something like that. Everybody was socially distanced. Everybody was wearing masks and so forth. But that's not the wedding they imagined. It's not the wedding that they wanted to have. So when everything is past, then they're not going to have another wedding, but they're going to have a big reception because they weren't able to do that, you know. So you can make some of those adjustments, and you can even have a proper wedding if you felt like, no, we want to have a real wedding. But if you're in love and God's called you to be together and you're convinced of that, then I would recommend just getting yourselves married. And you can do that at the court if you choose to do it there, or you can, like I said, get a marriage certificate, and you can do it with a pastor and just get that taken care of.
When you told the couple you may now kiss the bride, were they wearing masks?
I said, you may now take off your mask and kiss the bride.
Got it. And the veil.
Yes.
No, I let them take off their mask for the wedding itself, so they could see each other.
Yeah.
Didn't want it to
Make
be
sure
like
it's the right person.
Didn't want it to be like a Jacob and Leah thing. You know, like.
Did you want to add anything, Bobby?
Well, the only thing that I would say is I would agree with Brian assuming that you're supposed to get married. And if you haven't met with a counselor or talked with somebody, just making sure that's the case too. So I would say that sometimes people could be living together, but we don't have, and this isn't the place for us to know the detail of the relationship on all levels, because this isn't a counseling program. But if, let's say, there was somebody that they didn't reveal this, and they were just constantly fighting like cats and dogs. You're a believer, but this person's not even a believer, but that information wasn't revealed to us. But then we were to find this information out, I think that would influence the way that Brian just spoke.
Yeah,
so
I'm assuming that you're both believers.
Exactly.
You said that you were doing this because you want to follow Christ. So my assumption is you're following Christ.
Exactly. But if you do have those situations sometimes where you get someone calling and you think that, and I'm certainly not saying this is nary, I'm saying that people can sometimes, they just want to be a stamp of approval, and they're just looking. And so you can kind of set this conversation up so that you can get what you want to be said. And in particular, when you want to get married, when you really want to get married and you're anxious about that, I would just say too, though, you mentioned it being easy, living together without these sexual things. And that would be like a little bit of a red flag, because I go, well, why is it easy? I mean, I would imagine there would be strong sexual attraction. Like for me and my wife, when we were dating, it felt like someone poured a can of gasoline over us and lit a match. And so just being if I'm living in a house with somebody and it's just easy that I'm not having sexual attraction, like I would imagine that would be something that would be burning pretty bright.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's just one thing that I would say. Explore that.
Well, he said that they had that, but they've kind of moved beyond it. So
yeah.
I mean, but I think you could, for the purpose of sanctification, you can get to that place where you're just like, okay, this is what it is. So we're not, we're not even going to go there. It's like, I mean, you have to go somewhere to get inflamed in the sense of in your mind.
You go, well, I was 21, so it didn't take much when we were dating.
Right. I get the point.
Yeah. Neri, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective.
The point.
But Bobby, you brought up a good point that when we get these questions sometimes on the program, we do have to turn them away or say, talk to a pastor or a counselor at your church because, there's a lot of unknown things that we don't have time to get to on the program.
Yeah, and we're having this conversation in the midst of this, season of COVID. So everything's different right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases I would counsel them exactly the same way. In other cases, some other people, I've told plenty of people, no, you need to actually move out from each other. You need to, you just kind of look at each individual situation and you've got to kind of assess it, based on Scripture. The real issue is sexual relations. That's what God is saying not to do. Mm-hmm. And if you can be in a situation where you're not doing that and you're not compromising in any way and you're not putting yourself in a temptation situation that's beyond your capacity, then, for a season, sometimes you have to do that. I think of this one couple that I met them. They were probably 18 years old. I think they were 18 at the time. And they came in to visit me. They were living together and all of this stuff. Anyway, I got to lead them to Christ. They weren't able to make a change in their living situation. I married them. A few months later, they made a commitment to really following the Lord in their purity situation. And I don't know, 36 years later, they're still married. We're still friends. Their kids and my kids are best friends. And it's like, okay, well, God did a great thing there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'd want to say to Neri that keep in mind, I'm thinking of other people who might be listening that could have similar questions, context, situations.
Yeah.
So assuming that, you guys are just doing what you got to do for this particular season, but you love the Lord, you love each other, and you're just trying to protect yourself. I totally agree with Brian. Just assuming you're supposed to get married, then don't put it off. Just get married.
Yep.
And then you can enjoy each other intimately as well.
Yeah. And if you're 21, it's a different story.
It's a different story. I'm telling you, it's a different story.
But then we also got to bring up the fact, what do Neri's neighbors think? If they know that Neri and his fiance are Christians, but they're living together, does that bring up oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not so worried about that one myself because I think that's more, that's based on, there's a passage in the King James Version that says that, to avoid every appearance of evil. Mm-hmm. And I remember, even years ago, we would often use that one. Hey, that's an appearance of evil. That's an appearance of evil. But the word there appearance is really not the best translation. It is just avoid every form of evil. Just avoid evil, period. Jesus did things that appeared to be evil. The Pharisees thought, how is it that your master eats with tax collectors and sinners? That appeared evil to the Pharisees, but it wasn't evil. It was their perception of it. So I don't think we need to be bound by that.
Yeah, that's 1 Thessalonians 5:22, and Brian's exactly right. I mean, it was considered the appearance in its form. Not looking at that verse, I do think that there's a potential that you could have neighbors that could be like, I remember when I was working at Ritz-Carlton, like when Heather and I were dating, I mean, we were just naive, right? I mean, we'd go stay at a hotel, and by God's grace, we were able to wait. Like, I was very promiscuous before I came to the Lord. I was able to wait. We waited almost 2 years. We didn't handle that whole thing perfectly, but we waited for the big event. And what happened is we would stay like in hotels. We worked at the Ritz-Carlton, and we could stay at a Ritz for $50 a night. And so we go, let's go up to San Francisco, go check it out. And we'd stay in the hotel, and I'd just show up at work, and I'd talk about it. This guy was a Christian. He was a bellman at the Ritz. He says, hey, bro, just because he saw that I was just ignorant. I meant well. He's like, I don't know if you understand, like that doesn't kind of have the best flair. It leads people to think. Yeah. And I kind of received that, I don't remember exactly how all I handled that. I might have thought that's kind of legalistic where I would have been at that time. Yeah. But there is that potential where you can't say the above reproach piece doesn't fit into that category. I think that's the part. Yeah. But I know there's certain situations where sometimes a pastor will say, well, you got to move out. And it's like, well, they need a down payment. They need this. They don't even have it. Yeah. And so there's a lot to think about.
And the situation you described is, I'm thinking in a different context because I live in another country and it's more, you're talking about, boyfriend and girlfriend staying in a hotel. That's okay. That's a different conversation.
Dude, where's your head?
I don't even need appearance of evil. I could find another verse to talk to you about with that one. But, when I used to live in the UK, it's a very common thing in the UK for male and female to live in the same house as housemates. And so, here in the U.S., for many Christians, that would just be absolutely unacceptable. If you're a Christian and she's a Christian, and you guys can't live in the same house because you're male and female. To me, that's more of a cultural thing. And the Christians in the UK never even thought about it. It's like,
that's
why would you even bring that up? Of course we're not. This is a living situation. That's all it was. So that's what.
Interesting. The things you learn on this program called Pastor's Perspective. That's why you got to listen every day.
Isn't it crazy how geography? You can one context. It's no big deal if people are Christians and they drink wine or maybe they enjoy a cigar. You go into another context and people freak out. Yeah. And it's kind of like, boy, let's keep the gospel, right?
Where is it that coffee is considered a sin or something?
In Sweden, among Christians in Sweden. Yeah, because when my...
so our friend Annika in Sweden.
Okay, Annika, correct me on that if I'm wrong, or maybe the rules have changed. Maybe it's just with certain groups of Christians. But my father-in-law and mother-in-law, Chuck went to Sweden. He was asked to speak, and they went. And people were drinking alcohol, and that was uncomfortable, a little bit for them. And, as they sort of, and I don't know if it was them or people that were with them or whatever, it's people sort of bristled about it and like, what are you doing with that? They just shot back with, well, why do you drink coffee? Coffee, what's the difference? Coffee's addictive. Coffee has, caffeine in it. And so they just had a response like, what are you criticizing us for? You drink coffee. So I think it was Sweden.
Perez and I would be complete reprobates in Sweden if that's the case.
They're going to cancel our speaking engagement now.
Right.
Man. Looking forward to going. Guess not. Okay, so more questions coming up, like this one from Karen in Lakewood. Hello. Thanks for calling Pastor's Perspective.
Hi. How are you guys?
We're doing well. How are you?
Thank you.
I'm doing great. Thank you. I just got a quick question. Answer won't be quick, though, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the key. The question can be quick.
Answer might take the rest of the program.
I just need to. I have a friend, and she's Hispanic, and she's Catholic. So I'm trying to explain the rapture to her, and then she goes back, and the priests tell her something else, and she says it makes sense. And I know they have added books in their Bible. So I'm just wondering, how would I explain it? Or is there a good book on the subject that I can get in Spanish for her?
All right. Brian?
Okay. Well, first of all, yes, the Catholic Bible has more books, but none of them have to do with this issue. So you don't even have to worry about that because the New Testament is exactly the same. The additional books in the Catholic Bible are all in the Old Testament. So Catholic New Testament, same as the NIV or whatever, and you want to just show her the biblical passages. Now, of course, the church most often is not going to agree with it. Some won't even understand it. Some won't even know about it necessarily because it's not part of their theological view. So theologically, the Roman Catholic Church doesn't believe in prophecy in the sense that we do. They believe, of course, in a second coming of Christ, but the details about that are pretty much lost to them because of their theological position. And so, but as you show her in her Bible, just take her Catholic Bible and go to 1 Corinthians 15, verses 51 through 58, and 1 Thessalonians 14. 1 Thessalonians 14, 13 through 17, I think it is. And those are the two classic passages on the rapture in the New Testament. So take her to there and just let her read it in her own version of the Bible, and so she can just see that, wow, it's in here. Now, again, you might explain to her that her church is more than likely not going to understand it or have the view that the rapture is actually an event that's going to take place sometime. So does that help?
Hold on, let me bring back Karen.
It does help, and I was just wondering, is there a book that you guys know of as well as the scripture on the subject?
Well, I've written a book on the subject, but it's not in Spanish. Does it need to be in Spanish?
No, but it's just that's her first language. But
Okay.
I'll take.
Okay, well you can. I have a little book. It's online. It's downloadable for free. It's called Caught Up, and if you go to backtobasicsradio.com, you can just go there and you can just download it and print it on your printer and give it to her.
Yep, best thing to do. Backtobasicsradio.com. Click store. Lots of other resources there from Pastor Brian, but that book there, ebook, it's called Caught Up, no charge. Get it while supplies last. Oh wait, we have several.
We have a few.
But let me give you a phone number you can call. This is for the chapel store at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. They might be able to assist you with, maybe some Spanish books.
There might be a Spanish version of something on the rapture.
Yeah. And that number is 714-540-2941. Again, 714-540-2941.
That reminds me. I think, my Powers of Darkness, People of God is just getting laid out in Spanish. So the translation is done and the layout is in the process. So it's going to be done pretty soon.
En español.
En español.
The Powers of Darkness and the Gente de Dios. My Spanish isn't all that great, but it was a lot better. When I started going to school, I grew up learning Spanish, and then I started going to school and hung around with a bunch of kids that didn't speak Spanish, so I kind of lost it along the way. What a shame.
Man, that is a shame. You got to get that back.
I do, because then we could do like a Spanish version of Pastor's Perspective one day. That would be fun.
Well, we'd all have to learn Spanish to do that.
Well, that's true. That might not be easy.
Yep.
888. Nope. Don't call us. We're not here live today. I mean, we're here, but never mind. It's confusing. Let's go to, how about this one? Linda from Los Osos. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks for taking my phone call.
Looks like your question is, how do you talk to your pastor when you hear songs that you sing in church that are not scripturally correct? Wow, like what,
Yes.
Linda?
Well, there's a few songs that are sung that I think the young girl's name is Carrie Joby. I saw her interviewed once, and there's some that are Bethel songs or a Hillsong songs or some elevation music, and the songs within the words within the songs don't match scripture. And
do you have any examples?
No, sir. I'm so sorry I don't. And now that it's been months that we haven't been at the service singing together, I'm so sorry I can't give you an example. But I know that Karen or Bethel are the artists and like that. It's not that we do sing them all the time.
Right. Okay, we've got to take a break, but we'll be back in a couple of minutes and we'll answer your question, Linda. And everybody else on hold, we'll get to you as well here on Pastor's Perspective.
Pastor's Perspective continues in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pastor's Perspective continues. And now, here's today's host, Brian Perez.
Hello, we're back on the Pastor's Perspective program. Dr. Bobby Conway and I were having an intense conversation, and then the music began, and we weren't quite done yet. But we're back to answering your questions here on the program. You can find out more about Bobby on his website, oneminuteapologist.com. You can also go to YouTube and do a search for 1 Minute Apologist. And also in the studio with us is Brian Broderson, the senior pastor at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. All right, guys. Ready for more?
Are we ready for more? Yeah, we're ready for more. But let me just let a little bit of a secret out here.
Oh.
All right.
You sure? We're on the radio.
Yep.
Potentially millions of people are listening.
So
Maybe billions.
Are planning to do, we've got this requirement now by the state that we are not allowed to meet inside for church. So we're doing outside church right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're spread out around our campus, different zones. We got 5 or 6 different zones or whatever the case is. But we are moving toward a Sunday morning service on the field. So we have a couple of sports fields.
Like Good Friday,
not
Good Friday, Easter,
yes.
Sunrise service.
Both.
Kind of or
Good
both,
Friday
really, yeah.
and Easter Sunrise, yeah. So we're aiming for August the 9th.
Okay.
And we're going to, we'll still do all of our online services for everybody who still wants to, stay at home and watch online. We'll make sure that's all covered. But we're going to do a service where people are going to come out and they're going to be able to gather on the field, and we're going to just, sing to our heart's content, and we're going to preach, and we're going to, be close enough to each other to give an air high five and all of that stuff. So we're working on that right now. So it's going to be good. We were going to put up a tent, but the more we thought about it and the cost and everything, we just thought, what? Why don't we just kind of, thinking back on the Good Friday and the sunrise service, those were great. So that's going to be the plan. So
are you going to be offering a hazmat suit jump house for the kids.
Well, I'll be preaching in a hazmat, but
Okay,
you know,
good.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
See, we're just going to get like a hazmat the size of a jump house.
That's right.
I like it. I like it. So, see, that's why it's good to have the senior pastor of the church on the program with us, because he lets us in on all these little secrets.
That's right.
Coming up. So you heard it here first, August 9th. Mark
We're
your
excited
calendar.
about that. Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yes, it is. All right. So right before the break, we were speaking to Linda, who wants to know how to talk to her pastor about some of the music that they sing in worship there. Brian, what would you tell her?
Well, I mean, I know Linda, she mentioned that she couldn't think of anything specifically, but I think that what I wonder is, because I've heard this from quite a few people I've heard say these kinds of things, is this hearsay or is this an actual fact? Because I listen to Hillsong and I listen to Bethel, and I think I've heard some Elevation songs too, and I have not heard anybody really singing anything that's inconsistent with Scripture. I mean, some people aren't singing exact verses of the Bible. Mm-hmm. They don't do that so much unless you're doing like a chorus, that is just taken from a biblical text, like we used to do at Calvary back in the 70s and 80s. But when I listen to Hillsong or to Bethel, man, most of their music I think it's very scripturally sound, and I think it's communicating. The only thing I would say is I think sometimes it's and not them specifically, but just some of the newer music. Sometimes I think it's a little more me focused and rather than God focused, which I think can be a problem. But there's some great Hillsong songs that are God focused, and there's some great Bethel songs that are God focused. So I don't know, Bobby, are you sensing that with the worship? I know your daughter leads worship; she sings songs and stuff.
I think the big thing is just using discernment on whatever you're singing, be it Hillsong, be it Bethel. I think also some of the criticism could come more toward the broader beliefs of maybe a Bill Johnson with Bethel. But concerning music, I think that every church should expect their worship pastor to know theology and to be able to measure those lyrics against what the Bible says. And in the event that it doesn't quite measure up, then you put the song aside. But I don't think you have to write off. Let's just say there's 6 songs that is produced by Hillsong that don't nicely align with the Scripture. But there's 600 songs that do. Do you not sing the 600 songs that do because the 6 songs? Well, I'd say, man, I'd hate for my preaching to be put up that way, because I'm sure that through all the sermons in my life I've given, I've changed my mind on certain positions through the years. So there is an element where I think that, yes, we're always striving to discern. We try to show grace. Coming back up, I think some of the criticism comes from the leaders of the movements and some of the beliefs that they have. Yeah,
and here's an interesting thing on that point, because I am familiar with Bill Johnson, who is the head of Bethel, the Bethel, based up in Redding, California. And Bill has some, I think, strange beliefs, beliefs that I think
so
are,
too.
Kind of out there for sure. Nothing heretical in the sense of essential doctrine, but nevertheless some weird views. But I have never heard any of those weird views expressed in Bethel songs.
Right.
I don't think they're getting their lyrics from Bill.
Like grave-soaking songs and stuff like that.
Stuff like that. I haven't heard anything like that. Or
prairie dust.
Angel feathers floating around the room.
Yes.
Or, gold dust coming on you, or whatever it might be. So, and I know this for a fact with Hillsong. Hillsong actually has a couple theologians that go through their music to make sure that everything is biblically sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're part of the writing process, actually.
That's good to know. What type of theologians? Is it people that are fitting the theology of Hillsong as a movement, or is this external theologians? Do you know, or
like consultants, or
I think they're Orthodox monks, actually. Yeah. I don't know what they are. Why? They're evangelical theologians.
That was a great answer. He looks at me like a deer in the headlights, and then he says, I think they're evangelical monks.
Yes. He just comes up with that stuff sometimes.
I like it.
Really good.
They're evangelical theologians,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you mentioned that about the lyrics and everything, because there have been times when I will hear a song by Hillsong or Bethel or whatever, and I think, man, that sounds kind of weird, that chorus. So I'll look it up online, and oh my goodness, it's this Bible verse, this obscure passage in, Lamentations or something. And oh, okay, so here I was writing it off because that just sounds weird.
And that's true, Brian, because what a lot of I've noticed a lot of songwriters will use, mostly they will use like an NIV translation of something, or maybe an NLT, or they'll use even there's one song I really, really like, and as I go through the lyrics, it's a psalm, and it's like they use 3 different translations of the psalm in the song, and it's like because it fit, lyrically, and for the flow of the song, it fit to kind of change a word here or there. But they're all in common translations.
I do think it would be great for those who are, aspiring worship artists, or if you're a songwriter, to point our thoughts to the high greatness of God, because worship should be a time of not only giving our hearts a form of expression through words, but words that paint God to be as beautiful. I mean, because God is ineffable, which means that more than words can even express. Like, our words can't capture. When I was a new Christian, I found myself memorizing different adjectives because I was limited in my vocabulary as a new believer, and my heart was so full of love for God, but my vocabulary was so limited to express my love for him that I would literally try to learn as many adjectives as possible to express what my heart was feeling. I needed words. And I think that if we can see that people's hearts are full of love for God, and we want to give them words to express it, and so often these words are, like you said, Brian, they're kind of all about us. Like so many of the songs, I honestly, I get tired of hearing the phrase, God is for me. Because it's almost like we just go around and, God's for you, God's for you, God's for you, God's for you. Okay, I'm thankful, but am I for him? Am I for him? Right? He's proven that. Like, am I going to surrender to him? Like, I want to be invited to die to myself, to recognize this. And I feel sometimes like I'm being coddled. And I don't like when I'm feeling coddled.
And I do think that there is there's too much of that today. That's the one criticism that I would have. And it's not one group specifically.
No.
I think it's just just where worship music is these days. A lot of it is very subjective. And it's like, I mean, obviously there is a subjective part, right? I mean, we are experiencing God, but God is the great I am. So we should be able to say more things about him and directed to him, rather than always kind of singing about ourselves, And, I mean, there is a place to sing about yourselves because the Psalms talk about ourselves, So there is a place, but I think the bigger place is for God. But that reminded me of something. Matt Redman to me is phenomenal. Matt is a phenomenal lyricist. He, some of Matt's songs to me are just like, you just listen to that song and you are right there. You're worshiping, and the content, that song "Blessed Be Your Name" that Matt wrote years ago. I mean, you listen to the content of that song, and he's basically, kind of describing the experience of what is it? I think it's Job. There, and it's so powerful. And then, of course, the great Psalm 103. What's the biggest hit of Matt's ever, I think, was that
You Never Let Go.
No. The one that was more recent, maybe 3-4 years, 5 years ago. The big, and it was based on Psalm 103.
Praise the Lord, O my soul.
Bless the Lord, O my soul. Yeah.
Bless the Lord, O my soul. 10,000 Reasons.
10,000 Reasons. That's it. Go. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that song is so profound, so powerful, so moving.
Yeah. I mean, and I wouldn't want anybody to be down on people for saying God's for. I mean, I get that we're insecure, and I'm insecure, and we want to know that. I think that my bigger point is sometimes I do just feel very coddled. I feel like I'm just out in some daisy field with Jesus, and we're both running around with dresses, picking sunflowers, dancing and skipping, and there's this element where I want to feel
We'll get you
not
some,
too coddled.
Get you some counseling there, but
yeah.
Well, no, I'm resisting the feel of it, but I'm going. It just feels like it doesn't. It's not speaking.
You know the songs that are hard for me are the romantic songs. You know, the songs that you could actually take and with just a couple of changes of lyrics, you could sing it to your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that are really. Those are the problems.
The Jesus is my boyfriend songs.
The Jesus is my boyfriend.
Yeah, so I love the way you love me. You feel like you're out in a daisy field or something like. But,
in a dress with Jesus.
But my wife loves it, and it makes perfect sense. But it doesn't hit my masculine piece.
Right. We need more manly songs, I guess, is what Bobby's saying. But yeah, I would say that they do need to be more creative too, because I listen to dozens of songs every week, and sometimes it's just my eyes roll to the back of my head because I'm like, you can find a better way to say that? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
And then, you've got the hymns, right? And a lot of times we defer back to the hymns and talk about the wonder of the hymns. And some of the hymns, some of the Charles Wesley hymns are just extraordinary, theologically.
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing. And, many others from that period of time. But lest you go totally wild with the hymns, there are some funky ones too. There was a hymn that Pastor Chuck would do every once in a while, and it was like the Oompa band. We would play with it, and I would always think, like, how are we singing this song? I feel like I'm on a merry-go-round, and I can't right now. The lyrics slip my mind, but it was one of those where, like, whoever thought this was a good idea to write this song, and whoever thought it was a good idea to perpetuate it, and how is it in the 2000s we are singing this song?
Mm-hmm.
It was probably written more like 80 years earlier, but it was like, no, we should have left that one back in.
And the Bible does call for
1930s.
writing a new songs and letting a new song happen, and it makes sense. So those that are just totally trying to hang on to these old hymns, well, we need new songs. But those who are just offer the new songs, if we're getting old, we need to remember our legacy.
So we just successfully demonstrated what it's like to take a short question and give like an extremely long answer. So.
I know,
yes.
right?
Linda, thank you so much for your phone call here today.
It can be so subjective.
On Pastor's Perspective. All right, let's go to Jose in Long Beach. You're next on the program. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how can we help you?
Thank you for taking my call. I was calling because one time I was talking to my daughter. She had some personal problems with her boyfriend. And I was telling her, go ahead and, read the Bible. You're going to learn a lot from there. I mean, so you can make your own decisions and talk to your guy, blah, blah, blah. And she was telling me, well, how am I going to believe in God if I don't know what happened to the dinosaurs, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And she got me there because I didn't know what to answer her. Do you guys have an opinion about that? Something I can, probably go back and talk to her later on. And, I probably you guys are not going to have the right information or what happened to those dinosaurs, or they were here when Christ was here, or they were here before Christ was born in this planet, and and that's the reason why I'm calling, just to have an idea so I can answer my daughter.
Okay, Jose, write down this verse, Job chapter 40, verse 15. And if you start there in verse 15 and you read through chapter 41, you're going to find, I think, a description of two dinosaurs. The one is called Behemoth, and it is a land dinosaur, it seems. And there's a description of it there. And then in chapter 41, Leviathan is a water, a creature that lives in the water that's breathes fire and so forth. And the simple answer is that dinosaurs, like other animals, even in our lifetime, become extinct. They became extinct. So, in my lifetime, there have been animals that have become extinct. And, of course, over the centuries, animals, just died off for various reasons. We would imagine that many of them died in the flood, but some would have come through the flood and repopulated. Job lived after the flood, so he He knows what these creatures are in his time. And yet, at some point in time, with the environmental changes and whatever you might have as the other factors, these animals just died out over time. So, there's still a gigantic ocean that most of it's never been explored, and there's still places on the earth that no human being has ever been. So it's still entirely possible that some of these creatures are living still. It's, in the last 25 years, they've found creatures in the sea that they had thought had gone extinct millions of years ago, and they actually show up on the shore of some coast today. So,
all right, Jose, hope that helps. Did you want to add anything, Bobby?
No, that was a great answer. I mean, I think the big thing is just an old earther might say that these dinosaurs died out some 66 million years ago when an asteroid hit the Earth. A young earther is going to say that that the flood would have been something that would have caused the dinosaurs to die out. So just sometimes, depending upon one's theory, can determine how they went extinct.
But they were here, and they're not here now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no real problem with dinosaurs. The Bible doesn't teach that there weren't dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some really whacked out fundamentalist kind of people have said that God or the devil actually put the dinosaur bones in the ground to deceive people.
Mm-hmm.
That we know is kooky and absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
I had never heard that before. Man, there's so many different...
Goodness. But then they've talked about bringing like baby dinosaurs on the ark, and so the flood would have happened, and it seemed like they could have survived that, but they're just not here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of something scary, last night my wife and I were walking to go sit in a hot tub, and we live in a condo townhome, and we were walking over there, and it's about 8 o'clock at night, and we were talking about snakes yesterday. My wife just barely stepped on a rattlesnake.
Whoa.
About a foot long.
Yep.
Little fat boy.
Yeah.
Little fat,
for you to
chubby
move.
baby. And I thought, this is unbelievable because we've got this snake-infested backyard with the canyon back there.
Yeah, you do, man. I mean, Cheryl and I were walking on the beach on Monday.
Yeah.
And Cheryl is like, snake. Don't let Heather tell Cheryl that story. Snakes are her nemesis.
Oh, man.
But we're walking along the beach down in South Newport, and we're just walking along. She goes, "So, do you think some rattlesnakes come down here on the beach?" And I'm like, "No, they don't come down here on the beach." Yeah, I think they do. And no, they're up on the road. They don't come down to the beach. Well, I think they do. No, they don't. They don't come down to the beach. Well, they might want to get some water. Rattlesnakes do not drink salt water. No, they do not come down and drink salt water. But there was a time, not that long ago, maybe a decade or something, when we had some severe storms, some severe rains, and all of this, flooding came down from the hills and literally littered the beach with rattlesnakes.
Oh,
so that has never left my wife's mind, and I'm sure it never will the rest of her life.
Okay, so how did they get rid of these snakes? Like, what happened? Did it just resolve itself? Or?
Yeah, it resolved itself. I think they might have gone down and caught some and took them back up, and I don't know.
Did you take a break from surfing while this was in action, or watch your toes?
I did. I wasn't surfing at the time. When I was a kid, I used to rattlesnake hunt. That was something that we did, and
that's crazy.
And so I remember my first rattlesnake that I shot. I had a shotgun, a 410 shotgun, and I was just piddling around. I was jumping across this log. I did back and forth. I must have jumped off of it 10 times, and the 11th time as I jumped, I looked down, and there was a rattlesnake coiled right underneath where I'd been playing for the last 20 minutes, and I was like, rattlesnake! Ran over and got my.
Was this
shotgun.
in a canyon where you go out?
Yeah,
to find them?
Yeah. It was a place that we went out to shoot.
Is that a little overkill? The shotgun for the
rattlesnake? The shotgun wasn't overkill. The fact that I shot it 4 times with a shotgun was overkill. Yes, because I kind of just blew it to bits, which was not. You want to blow its head off, and then you want to take its body. You want to skin it. You want to cure your rattlesnake skin and make yourself a hat band.
Yes. And all of our nature lovers are just crawling in their own skin right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel sympathy for the rattlesnakes.
Yeah. This was before you loved rattlesnakes. This was back in the days when you actually thought they were, harmful.
Yeah.
Now today they're pets.
Yeah.
They have psychiatrists, they have hotels, a rattlesnake hotel you can take them to, put them up and, as we do with all the animals now.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing that we can talk about. Sherry was going to go to you, but you hung up, so call us back. Instead, we'll take this call here, or this question on Facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective from Karen in Utah. I heard about in the book of Kings, 1 Kings, there's a mention of the book of Jasher. I looked it up online because I had never heard of it. Knowing that the internet isn't always a good source for information, I thought I would ask the experts, you guys, what is the book of Jasher? And is it related to the Bible or Christianity? I looked up the passage online, and if this book doesn't exist, how does somebody have access to this book? How was she able to find it online is what she wants to know.
Bobby knows the answer to that question.
Well, there's not a ton about this. I know that it's a non-canonical book. It's mentioned a couple times in the Hebrew Bible. And you'll see that sometimes where, like, hey, in the book of Jasher. And so this is a few times mentioned. It's non-canonical. And just because something's non-canonical doesn't mean it's not valuable. I mean, it's mentioned in the scriptures. So, I mean, there are books like the 1st and 2nd Maccabees. I mean, these can be very valuable in helping you understand, the Maccabean family and some of the revolting that took place. So all that to say, it's non-canonical, but it doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's mentioned twice in the Bible.
All right, another one from Facebook, Jessica and Whittier. What does the Bible say about blended families? Does it say anything?
Nope.
Well, Joseph is the adopted father of Jesus, but that's not all that much, right? It doesn't say a whole lot.
No. I mean, blended families is... I mean, it's always happened in some way, right? Not necessarily through, I'm sure it's always happened probably through divorce and remarriage, but it's happened other ways. I mean, it's happened through death, somebody dies, they remarry, and their families come together. So, but the Bible doesn't specifically address it. It's a blended family is fine. It's a good thing.
Ron Deal with Family Life has a podcast on blended families, and I'd say it's fantastic because there are a lot of dynamics that go into dealing with it, and he can help you with the practical outworkings of a blended family.
Ron Deal. Good deal. All right. Thanks so much for listening to the program today. We're out of time. We'll be back tomorrow to answer your questions, so give us a call. We open up the lines about 7 minutes before 3 p.m. Pacific time. For Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway, I'm Brian Perez. Have a great evening. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Pastor's Perspective. We trust you've been blessed and had your question answered. Join us Monday through Friday and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, California.